It's still embarrassing. And I know it's not your fault. It's the men's fault. Collectively, the way men have behaved in romantic relationships it is nothing short of terrorism. It is nothing short of emotional terrorism. Every time you come on this app, is some woman giving us a 62-part story about how a man was Prince Charming and then was the devil incarnate. For British Vogue, I wrote, "This piece is having a boyfriend embarrassing now." I know people have reading the headline, they're like, nah, nah, nah. But listen, for this piece, I interviewed a bunch of women. I spoke to them about why they hide their partners on social media, or they like post very inconspicuously about them. You know, some people said it was about privacy and this sort of unique, special privacy that you only afford your romantic partner. A lot of people spoke about the evil eye and this idea that, oh, if I post my partner, then people who are jealous of me will somehow, through their terrible vibes, ruin my relationship. Some people said that they felt as if they were scared to post because what happens when someone comes to them as a woman, or what happens when they break up and they have to, you know, delete all the posts. And there's this whole feeling of like shame of having tried and failed to find love. And then there was a really interesting point that came across both people in relationships and single people. And this idea that like being in a relationship with a man and showcasing it to the world in and of itself was an embarrassing thing to do. And that's what I really wanted to get into. There was this idea of there not being a solidarity with other women. There was this idea of like a relationship just by default being something that rendered you quite uncool.
This young lady here, Chante Joseph, wrote an article called "Is Having a Boyfriend Embarrassing Now?" And it's kind of gone viral. It's been syndicated in multiple countries now. It's sort of a rallying cry in some ways, but it's very problematic. It's very problematic in its provocative nature, right? I think it's more provocative for the fact that it represents something that the article is not discussing. So you already had women with certain biases that are syncing up now with this article and also affirming the fact that they have been trapped in a state of singledom, right? It became a coping mechanism for them to almost revel in the fact that they have not been able to maintain a healthy relationship. Even if that wasn't what Chante's initial thoughts were for creating this piece, this is sort of what resulted. She's really living it up. She's really acting like this is, this is groundbreaking work when, it's not really that complicated of a read. I suggest you all go read it for yourself, of course, but I'm going to give my thoughts on it.
What I really wanted to get into, there was this idea of there not being a solidarity with other women. There was this idea of like a relationship just by default being something that rendered you quite uncool. I spoke about this podcast I came across where they were talking about, is it lame to have a boyfriend? And they say, when I meet a girl and she has a boyfriend, I automatically just kind of put her in a box or in a category, and I just don't feel as inspired or engaged by her. And then when someone doesn't, I feel like they have so much life and prospect and they are just entertaining and fun, and I kind of feel empowered by their individualism. But interestingly, the girls talking about this on the podcast, agreeing with this idea that like girls without boyfriends are cool, are also in relationships themselves. And so
don't miss that point. Do as I say, not as I do. You've got people out here that are dictating cool, which, I mean, that can be an argument in itself. Are women really cool? Is that a thing that women do? Are they cool girls? I guess to other girls they could be cool, but as men, do we look at women that are cool? And is that a place of status in relation to men? You know what I mean? Like, it's obvious there's a social hierarchy. As we've always said, every woman is a 10 until a 10 walks into the room, right? I send this as a warning to you guys out there that are in relationships, that some of this might be happening in the background of your relationship and you might not even be aware of it. Your woman might be cursing your existence in ways that you hadn't even thought of. And that's what this article is really bringing to light. In addition to shooting single women some bail for a life of solitude.
I was thinking so much about how it is very uncool to be a boyfriend girl. It is very uncool to be a my man person. And I spoke to both just people who are on social, but also content creators and influencers about what happens when they post their partners, right? A lot of them lose a lot of followers, especially if they were already single.
You know, Megan Thee Stallion is actually learning this now. She's learning this the hard way with her last single, where she's singing about Klay Thompson. My man, my man, my man. Yeah. All these girls just hating on the fact that Megan could potentially be in something of a decent relationship. You know, now we've got our own problems with that pairing in general, right? And how they just spawned into creation, you know. And we all like Klay. She liked to put people in jail. I saw somebody in the comments describe it as, it's cool to be a girl with a boyfriend as opposed to being a girlfriend. And that comes into my first point about effort. The effort that isn't made in some of these relationships, and all the outsized pouring into that men are supposed to do to have this relationship, to maintain this relationship. This is why I say the simps are messing it up for everybody. That is the definition of simping, is that you are putting so much into this woman, your time, effort, energy, and money, and you're not getting much in return. This is the ideal situation for these women that Chante Joseph is speaking to.
Individualism. But interestingly, the girls talking about this on the podcast, agreeing with this idea that like girls without boyfriends are cool, are also in relationships themselves. And so I was thinking so much about how it is very uncool to be a boyfriend girl. It is very uncool to be a my man person. And I spoke to both just people who are on social, but also content creators and influencers about what happens when they post their partners, right?
And see, this is a big problem. A lot of these women are influenced by social media and by content creators. Pretty much this whole thing is talking about the fact about a soft launch of a boyfriend, like how a content creator reveals their relationship to the public. They're talking about the social currency they lose from going from single to in a relationship.
A lot of them lose a lot of followers, especially if they were already single. And this idea that now you are someone's girlfriend and you're posting about this, it's something that people automatically disengage from. I do it too. If I follow someone because they, I don't know, post their outfits and all of a sudden it's their boyfriend every day, I'm just like mute. I came here for a reason. But this is happening like across the board. And like just culturally, I think a lot of like the days of a man being a prize has really changed. It's really changed. And obviously this has come from like just the empowerment of single women in general, but also just how the trajectory of men and women are going in completely opposite directions.
Now, is that true? Are men and women going in completely opposite directions? I would like to think that this is the minority of women. I think the majority of women want to be in healthy relationships, and that's where we've been for so long. I wonder if social media has programmed women to think that they're going in a different direction than men, that we're not all headed toward the same destination. This is not a good look.
And now we're having to look at heterosexuality with the political lens that we've looked at other sexualities. And we really have to evaluate, if we are a part of this thing, what does it mean? And so it's a really interesting piece. I think people should go and read it and should go and check it out. And I've also found the backlash to it. You know, I think a lot of women in relationships will say, well, you know, I hate all men apart from my man. He is a feminist and he is a this and he is a that, and I shouldn't feel embarrassed and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. If people want to scream like men are trash, I hate all men, men are trash, I hate all men, and then you shack up with a man and you're like, but not my man though, and someone says that's embarrassing, this is the culture that we've created and we've fostered.
It's not embarrassing. It is hypocritical though. And it happens a lot. It's to some of the biggest misandrists on TikTok, especially one that's actually featured on this channel. She is now in a relationship, and now it's all about her relationship and how wonderful her man is but she says it's just him. You realize out there, fellas, that they are compartmentalizing men. So now as a whole, we don't get the benefit of the doubt of being halfway decent. We get all men except for that one man that she's with currently, because usually after the relationship's over, he's back to being in the pile with the rest of us, right? Ain't shit.
Right? And so I think a lot of people want to have their pie and eat it too. When there's nothing wrong with that, but I just think as we become a lot more critical of heterosexuality, I just think those, you can't sit comfortably in that anymore.
And what's this critical about heterosexuality? She said it twice now. The criticism of heterosexuality, what does that lead to? Does that lead to the LGBTQIA plus community? It sounds like a slippery slope that a lot of these women are thinking part of this cool also comes with not being completely straight. That's interesting, because we can think of so many women that are very fluid in how they are sexually. So I think what people were saying is right. Feminism's ultimate goal at this point seems to be to lead women into the LGBTQ community. It would seem, right?
Which I personally think is a good thing, because it means that we are like deepening heterosexuality. We're thinking so much more critically about what it is we're engaging in, and we're being conscious about our choices.
I don't think you are.
Which I think is important. But yeah, go and read the piece. Sorry to drone on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Shout out to everyone that made it to the end of this video. I have so much to say on this. You know, a lot of people have commented being like, you're jealous, you're bitter, I would hate to be single. And firstly, in this piece, I spoke predominantly to people in relationships about the fears and anxieties that they have around their own relationships, right? So this actually is, none of this is just me being like, this is what it is. This is me quite literally just giving back what people said. The original piece had a lot more quotes in it, but they all got kind of like edited out word count wise. I think the word count was 850. I wrote like 1,500 words, and they were just like chop, 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 chop. Secondly, I feel like the lives of single women have been analysed. Everybody is talking about single women. What to do with them, what's wrong with them, how they cannot be single, why they are single. A lot of the time it is scathing, it is unkind, and we are always fodder for content, right? Every podcast wants to do an episode about single women. They're single women, they know, they're friends. People are obsessed with us. People are obsessed with single women. And so we've had to sit there and be on the receiving end of everyone's analysis of our shortcomings and the reason why we occupy this unfortunate space. As soon as we start to really analyze, you know, heterosexuality, a straight couple, what that means, what that is, and we talk candidly about it, it's always, you're jealous, you're single. Like, I could write a whole article. I've written a whole article.
But are you not going to acknowledge that that might be part of the reason why? You have so many women out here that are single, and them even seeing a woman in a relationship that they once respected or revered or whatever, in a relationship somehow triggers something in them. And I'm positing that that thing might actually be jealousy. So I know we're supposed to be evolved and we're supposed to have moved beyond base primal instincts, but that's what it sounds like. And that's what I'm getting from this whole thing, you know, not to mention the fact that there's also dehumanizing of men, that as some sort of accessory. You know, and that's where it gets weird for me. I believe that Chante was genuine in her wanting to just survey people and find out what was going on. But there was obviously a slant here. There was obviously some sort of push towards the fact that you knew that this is how women operate, that women were ridiculing women that were catering to their men or being boyfriend centric.
About people in relationships talking about embarrassment and fear around their partners. And despite all of that, I am still jealous because I'm single. And this is that you are under spells. You are under spells, people. It's like even presenting not great relationships, for some reason that makes me jealous. And it's really interesting because all the most scathing reads of heterosexuality are from lesbians.
What did I tell you? All roads lead back to lesbianism, correct?
One thing about lesbians, woo! Yeah. they're really going to tell you what the hell is up. And it's really interesting that if I read that and I discuss that, as I have a lot actually over the last few videos I've made, it's always this thing of you're jealous, you're jealous, you're jealous. This is theory from lesbians. This isn't coming from my own brain. Do you know what I mean? This is someone outside of the confines of heterosexuality who is looking in and observing all of the ways it fails women. And me repeating that just makes me jealous. This is not a theory. I wish I was intelligent enough to come to these conclusions on my very own and provide the compelling evidence. But unfortunately, incredible lesbians have done the work before me. And I'm merely just sharing what they said. I find it so interesting that but you can see there is a real need to protect heterosexuality. Any sort of criticism of relationships, straight relationships, is always jealous. And you have to think, why are people so rabid to defend this thing? Like, what is their invested interest in it?
The future of humanity, perhaps? I mean, that's just a guess. What do I know?
And why do they see every single critique of it as an indictment of the person making the comment? And so I think a lot more people, whether you're single or partnered, should start to focus on people in relationships, the construction of the heterosexual identity, what it requires, what you have to give up, what you obtain. Like, if we just open our mind 10% more, I promise you will see new colors, because we're really being critical about the institution that we have just been like, oh, sure, this is what it is. We've resigned ourselves to it. We don't have to do that. Do you know what I mean? So I think this whole thing of like, you're just jealous. Come on now. You don't have to come harder than that, because that doesn't hit anymore. You can't just call single women jealous. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
This is what I said earlier. This is part of the coping mechanism. This is part of smoothing it out for single women. They were getting so much less attention, so much less, even though she said that single women are the topic of every podcast, which I disagree with. I think it's equal between women in relationships and women that are single. But she's centering herself and trying to give herself an out from being called jealous of women in relationships and successful, healthy relationships. And there's this whole theory of Tracy Ellis Ross being, and I saw her mentioned several times in the comments, of Tracy Ellis Ross being this kind of avatar for a single, refined woman. But none of you all are millionaires like Tracy Ellis Ross. Tracy Ellis Ross didn't even have to be an actress, and I'm pretty sure she would have been well off. Her mom's Diana Ross. Her dad, I think, had a little money. Tracy Ellis Ross isn't normal in her lifestyle, that she's in her 50s and single without children, and she's able to travel the world and live luxuriously and dress up and be in magazines. You're not going to be doing that in whatever town you're in Ohio. That's why I think this is a slippery slope, this whole conversation. And the fact that she's getting all this information from well-researched lesbians lets me know where the priority is. Is your girl listening to this type of thought? Is she being influenced by this? Fellas, you need to ask.
So many people have messaged me to be like, my boyfriend is so special and unique, and he's so not like other boyfriends, and I'm not embarrassed, and I love my boyfriend, I love my man. Like, it's only embarrassing when, he doesn't buy you flowers every day. I'm telling you, and I am telling you.
No, ma'am.
It's embarrassing, period.
No singing.
It's embarrassing, period. Do you know how many women in loving relationships have messaged me to be like, hey, I love my man down. This is still embarrassing. It's still embarrassing. And I know it's not your fault. It's the men's fault. Collectively, the way men have behaved in romantic relationships is nothing short of terrorism.
Oh, okay. Now we're getting down to something else. We're talking about the men that you decided to be in relationships with, but somehow men are terrible. You understand how that works? A very specific one, however many people you've dealt with or were in a relationship with have treated you wrong, and this is the response. now men are terroristic in a way. That is dangerous thinking. That is dangerous thinking. But it explains a lot. It explains a lot about why they now say it's embarrassing to be in a relationship, why they're saying being single is a better choice. They think that all men, because based on the personal situations that they've been in, are somehow, we're terrorizing them, when there can be nothing further from the truth. They're like she mentioned before in the other videos. What about the men that are also feminists or sensitive or whatever, caring, loving, whatever you want to call it? Are they also terroristic? That's dark. That's dark, I think.
It's still embarrassing. And I know it's not your fault. It's the men's fault. Collectively, the way men have behaved in romantic relationships is nothing short of terrorism. It is nothing short of emotional terrorism. Every time you come on this app, it's some woman giving us a 62-part story about how a man was Prince Charming and then was the devil incarnate. Right? And this is just what we've normalized in dating. And we kind of go into dating being like, whoo, I wonder what breed of terror this person is going to reign on my life today. And from when that is your approach to dating, or for when that is the attitude around dating in the get-go, it just feels like being with a man is an incredibly volatile thing. You just don't know what's going to happen next. And the people around you don't know what's going to happen next. People keep being like, oh, well, why? How come when a man is with a woman, it's not embarrassing, but when a woman is with a man, it's because the men are embarrassing.
Who's going to tell her, fellas? How many times? And you talk about a soft rollout. You talk about a rollout on a social media for your girlfriend. That's a big step. Because then you got to tell all your other girls. But I think it comes from, like I said, a lot of women getting into relationships with men that aren't necessarily interested in them. They're on the constant. They've basically boxed this man in who doesn't want to be in a relationship with her. And now they're trying to get him to act right. And they're complaining about it on TikTok. That's how you get your 62-part story. Chante.
Being with a woman doesn't do anything apart from shield probably what makes him embarrassing to the rest of the world.
Really? It shields what makes him embarrassing to the rest of the world. You hear this? This is how they think of us. It shields. A woman, the only thing she can offer you is shielding your true self from the world. Because if you're in a relationship, you're a good guy. Is that right? Is that what, am I following what she's saying? This is crazy. This is the mind of the person who lobs an article like this out into the public. I'm glad I took the time to do some research and look into what she had going on, what public statements she was making after releasing this article to the world.
To the rest of the world. Guys, lock in. Obviously, I know embarrassment is such a light touch term. But what I'm really trying to get at is that where men are societally, where they are politically, education-wise, how they behave, the attitudes that we've normalized, this cannot run anymore.
And that's another point here that I told you there's a subtle undertone to this that is undercutting social norms. She's saying that men are not politically acceptable anymore. That's interesting. Because if we were to say the same about them, we would be called what? Archaic, conservative, we'd be called cavemen. Yet, as I would say, free as women are in the Western world, what they're saying is that it's still not enough. That it's still more to be gained in this feminist pursuit. And that what you're offering them is somehow restraining them from being their true selves. Where
men are societally, where they are politically, education-wise, how they behave, the attitudes that we've normalized, this cannot run anymore. And I know nobody wants to hear it. No one wants to hear that being with a man is embarrassing, especially when you're in a loving relationship. But I think it's just take stock of where we are at politically, right? The madness that men are doing, both on a broader societal level, but also on an interpersonal level. The heterosexual romantic fantasy is crumbling. It is crumbling before our very eyes. And are we going to clamor to try and put together the chaos? Or are we going to think about something new? Imagine a different world. Imagine a different way our relationships can exist so they don't feel so oppressive. I just think.
I love how the discussion of relationships being oppressive is very one-sided. Do you think men don't go through some form of this? That's what I say when I feel like she dehumanizes men. And she's not the only one, obviously. She is following suit with, like I said, a lot of feminist thought that has been popular in the past few years, for sure. But it's so easy to other men and patriarchy when you have no idea what that really means. Have you even lived through that type of repression? To say that this is repression, this current day where you are afforded rights and allowed to earn and allowed to live freely and make choices that you want to make, you view that as oppression.
Think about something new. Imagine a different world. Imagine a different way our relationships can exist so they don't feel so oppressive. I just think we have continually rewarded men for the abysmal way they treat women. And I just feel like it's getting to the point that it is unavoidable. It's uncomfortable now. So yeah, having a boyfriend is a bit embarrassing because men are embarrassing because what are they doing?
I'm just going to leave it there. What do you all think? Are men embarrassing now? Where are we? What are we talking about? If this, and let me say, I was so surprised at how many women were agreeing in the comments. Now, if this was just a fringe element, if all of these posts weren't in the six figures with multiple comments, I wouldn't think anything of it. But this is our reality, fellas. Are we going to stand for it? And this is why I said, being a yes man to these women, giving them what they want, it doesn't get you anything but more of this, more of the same. I don't know if the thought is there yet, because they've easily turned anything men say online into some sort of radical group. When this type of talk gets mainstreamed on Vogue magazine, that's interesting, but that just sets up the dynamics of what's happening here and how acceptable male thought is versus female thought. How you're pushed into the corner, but they're celebrated for seeking independence without you. But what are you going to do when it really gets real? That's a question for you ladies out there. I know a man seems like an accessory at this point. Something, a handbag. You got a Hermes, got a Louis Vuitton, and you got a male. Because a man isn't going to stand for this. I'll tell you that right now. But anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. This is Faucette Media.